20 years of marriage, 7,300 mornings of waking up next to someone you believe you know intimately. 2 decades of shared meals, family vacations, and quiet conversations beneath cotton sheets. But what if it was all based on a lie? In Avon Ridge, a lakeside town where neighbors knew each other's business and community ties ran deep, one man's horrific discovery shattered not just his perception of reality, but the very foundation of his existence. Nathaniel Harper never suspected that his beloved wife Lila harbored a secret so profound that its revelation would transform love into rage, trust into betrayal, and ultimately culminate in bloodshed. The truth doesn't always set you free, sometimes it destroys everything you've built. This isn't just a story about murder. It's about the fatal consequences when the person you've shared your life with for 20 years turns out to be someone else entirely. Someone with a different name, a different past, and blood on their hands. The Harpers were Avon Ridge's golden family. Nathaniel, a talented architect whose precise attention to detail had earned him respect throughout the region, took pride in the life he'd constructed. His wife Lila moved through social gatherings with natural grace, her warm smile and thoughtful gestures making her the perfect complement to Nathaniel's more reserved nature. Their children represented the culmination of their apparent success. Clara, a brilliant young writer whose talent was already garnering attention from university professors, and Ethan, whose soulful music revealed sensitivity beyond his 16 years. Their colonial home stood as a physical manifestation of their success. Beautifully maintained gardens, tasteful decor that graced local home magazines, and a front porch where neighbors gathered for summer barbecues. From Christmas cards to community fundraisers, the Harpers embodied the American dream: hard work, family values, and unwavering devotion to each other. No one suspected the deadly secret threatening to rupture their carefully constructed world. On a crisp autumn evening, while golden leaves tumbled across manicured lawns, the Harper home transformed from sanctuary to crime scene. Blood pooled across imported Italian tile that Nathaniel had personally selected during a family vacation 5 years earlier. Lila Harper lay motionless, her once vibrant eyes vacant, multiple stab wounds marking the violent end to what neighbors had considered the perfect marriage. Emergency responders found Nathaniel sitting silently beside her body, the knife still clutched in his trembling hands, blood soaking into the cuffs of his tailored dress shirt. "She wasn't who I thought she was," he repeated, his voice hollow with shock. 20 years of lies. As police secured the scene, the children huddled together in horrified disbelief, their world collapsing around them. What had triggered this explosion of violence? What could possibly drive a man with no history of aggression to murder the woman he had cherished for 2 decades? What if the person sleeping beside you for 20 years was living a complete lie? Have you ever wondered how well you truly know your spouse, the person who shares your bed, raises your children, and knows your deepest vulnerabilities? The truth is, we all keep certain parts of ourselves hidden, but some secrets are dangerous enough to destroy lives. The devastating consequences of hidden identities extend far beyond the individual. They ripple outward, consuming families and communities in their wake. What desperate circumstances would force someone to completely reinvent themselves? And what happens when that carefully constructed identity finally crumbles, leaving nothing but raw truth and devastating consequences? If this story of deception and fatal consequences has captured your attention, make sure you don't miss our future true crime investigations. Hit that subscribe button now and ring the notification bell. Leave a comment sharing whether you think some secrets should stay buried forever. Your support helps us bring these powerful life lessons to light. From the outside, the Harper family's life unfolded with enviable precision. Their weekday routine began at 6:30 a.m. when Nathaniel and Lila rose together, sharing quiet moments over coffee before the children joined them for breakfast at 7:15. Weekends featured family traditions, Saturday morning pancakes followed by afternoon activities tailored to each season. Sailing in summer, hiking in fall, sledding in winter, and gardening in spring. Their annual calendar included meticulously planned vacations, holiday gatherings that neighbors coveted invitations to, and milestone celebrations that became the talk of Avon Ridge. The family navigated life's inevitable challenges with remarkable harmony. When Clara struggled with calculus, Nathaniel arranged specialized tutoring. When Ethan faced bullying in 7th grade, Lila worked discreetly with school administrators while teaching her son resilience. Financial decisions were made jointly, with careful consideration given to both immediate needs and long-term security. Their 15th anniversary party exemplified their apparent contentment. 100 guests gathered at the Lakeside Community Center where Lila and Nathaniel renewed their vows. Photos from that evening showed a couple still visibly in love, their children beaming with pride. Even in private moments, observed only by close friends, The Harpers seemed genuinely happy, their affection never performative, their commitment to each other unwavering. Nathaniel Harper approached both his career and family life with meticulous precision. At 45, his salt and pepper hair framed a face known for thoughtful expressions rather than quick smiles. His architectural firm had designed half the prominent buildings in the county, each structure reflecting his commitment to both aesthetics and functionality. Colleagues described him as exacting but fair, a man whose handshake sealed deals more effectively than formal contracts. Lila Harper, 43, moved through life with natural elegance that belied her humble demeanor. Her volunteer work at the library and hospital made her beloved throughout Avon Ridge. She maintained their home with the same care as Nathaniel designed buildings. Everything had its place and purpose. Clara, their firstborn, inherited her father's analytical mind and her mother's social grace. Her writing revealed remarkable emotional insight, capturing human complexity with uncanny precision. Ethan expressed himself through music, his compositions communicating emotions he struggled to verbalize, each note revealing a depth that surpassed his 16 years. The Harper residence stood as Nathaniel's personal masterpiece, a 3-story colonial with white columns and navy shutters, perfectly positioned to capture both sunrise and sunset across Lake Meridian. The property's 3 acres included meticulously maintained gardens that Lila had designed, featuring native plants that transitioned seamlessly from cultivated spaces to natural woodland. Inside, the home balanced elegance and comfort. The central staircase curved gracefully beneath a hand-selected chandelier, while the living room's floor-to-ceiling windows captured the lake's shifting moods. The kitchen combined professional-grade appliances with warm touches, children's artwork framed alongside vintage botanical prints, handcrafted pottery displayed on open shelving. Each bedroom reflected its occupant. Nathaniel's home office featuring clean lines and organized systems. Lila's reading nook filled with well-loved classics. Clara's creative space overflowing with journals and literary inspirations. Ethan's room transformed into a mini recording studio where emotion translated into melody. The basement held Nathaniel's workshop where he built custom furniture, while the sunroom showcased Lila's remarkable talent for nurturing even the most delicate plants. The Harper name carried weight throughout Avon Ridge. When local businesses needed architectural expertise, Nathaniel was their first call. When the Children's Hospital launched a fundraising campaign, Lila's organizational skills doubled their expected donations. The family's consistent community involvement, from Nathaniel coaching youth soccer to Lila's management of the annual arts festival, earned them universal respect. Their dinner parties became coveted invitations, gathering influential community members who left impressed by both the conversation and cuisine. Even teenagers acknowledged the Harper household as cool, a sanctuary where Clara and Ethan's friends felt welcome and respected. Local media regularly featured the family and human interest stories that highlighted their contributions and seemingly perfect balance of professional success and family harmony. Despite her central role in community life, Lila's history before Avon Ridge remained remarkably obscure. She deflected personal questions with practiced skill, redirecting conversations toward the present with a warm smile that discouraged further inquiry. The few details she shared seemed deliberately vague: a childhood out west, parents who had passed away years ago, college years spent moving around quite a bit. Family photo albums began only with her marriage to Nathaniel. No childhood mementos adorned their home, no vintage photographs or treasured keepsakes. Even Miranda, Nathaniel's sister who had grown close to Lila, admitted knowing little about her sister-in-law's life before the age of 25, accepting Lila's explanation that her past held painful memories better left forgotten. Inconsistencies in Lila's narrative emerged gradually over the years. During a dinner party, she mentioned growing up near mountains, though she'd previously referenced coastal childhood memories. Her apparent fluency in Spanish surfaced unexpectedly during a family vacation, surprising even Nathaniel. Once, while helping Clara with genealogy research, she abruptly changed the subject when asked about her maiden name. A college friend of Nathaniel's visiting from Chicago stared at Lila with puzzled recognition, later asking if she'd ever lived in Illinois, a question she firmly denied despite visible discomfort. Occasionally, mail arrived addressed to L. Harper, with no return address, letters Lila quickly secured away. Twice yearly she took unexplained day trips alone, returning distracted and emotionally distant. As years passed, subtle inconsistencies in Lila's behavior became increasingly noticeable. The locked drawer in her desk contained nothing but blank stationery when Nathaniel needed a pen one afternoon, though he'd seen her frantically securing it moments before. During their 15th anniversary celebration, She abruptly excused herself after spotting an unfamiliar older couple among the crowd of well-wishers, returning 30 minutes later with reddened eyes she attributed to allergies. Financial discrepancies appeared in their joint accounts. Small withdrawals Lila explained as craft supplies or donations, yet no corresponding items appeared in their home. Twice yearly, exactly 6 months apart, she visited a college friend in a neighboring state, returning with no photos or souvenirs. Her reaction to news reports proved particularly telling. During a family dinner, a television segment about cold cases caused her to drop a serving dish, her hands trembling as she cleaned up the mess. When Clara selected criminal justice as her minor, Lila strongly discouraged it, suggesting creative writing instead with unusual insistence. Most concerning was her growing vigilance. Motion-activated security lights appeared around their property without discussion. Window locks were checked nightly. Phone calls were taken in hushed tones behind closed doors. Each anomaly on its own seemed minor, but collectively they painted a portrait of someone constantly looking over her shoulder. Miranda Harper, Nathaniel's younger sister, visited the family quarterly from her Seattle home. At 40, her career as a clinical psychologist had honed her observational skills beyond mere curiosity. During her Christmas stay 3 years prior, she noted Lila's extreme reaction when someone knocked unexpectedly at the door, a physical flinch followed by controlled composure. "Something's off with Lila," Miranda confided to Nathaniel during a private moment. "She monitors exit points in every room. Her laughter stops abruptly when certain topics arise. Last night, I found her downstairs at 3 a.m., searching news websites with terms I couldn't quite catch before she closed the laptop." The first letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, a plain envelope with no return address containing only a newspaper clipping about an unsolved homicide from 20 years ago. Lila claimed it was junk mail, and quickly destroyed it. 3 similar envelopes followed over subsequent months. Late-night phone calls became routine. Lila would answer on the first ring, stepping onto the back porch regardless of weather. "Work contacts from my previous job," she explained vaguely when questioned. "Nothing important." Her social media presence was meticulously curated. No tagged photos allowed, strict privacy settings maintained, friend requests screened with unusual thoroughness. When Clara created a family history video project for school, Lila provided only carefully selected photographs, all dating after her marriage. Most notably, Lila refused to attend Nathaniel's Seattle conference when learning it coincided with a true crime convention in the same hotel. Her excuse about needing to care for Ethan during exams rang hollow when he reminded her his tests had been rescheduled. Despite mounting evidence of unusual behavior, Nathaniel consistently rationalized his wife's actions. "Lila values her privacy," he told Miranda, dismissing her concerns. "Not everyone needs to share every detail of their lives." When Clara questioned her mother's reluctance to discuss her childhood, Nathaniel suggested some families simply didn't emphasize history. The financial discrepancies he attributed to Lila's thoughtful surprise planning. The security measures seemed reasonable precautions in changing times. His architectural mind, trained to see patterns, deliberately avoided connecting these dots. The foundation of their marriage felt too solid to question. 20 years of shared life overshadowed these peculiarities, rendering them inconsequential in comparison to their deep connection and mutual respect. The breaking point came during a summer barbecue when an unexpected guest, a retired detective who had recently moved to Avon Ridge, studied Lila with uncomfortable intensity. Throughout the evening, his gaze returned to her repeatedly, his expression shifting from curiosity to certainty. As guests departed, he handed Nathaniel a business card. "Call me," he said quietly, "about your wife." That night, Nathaniel discovered Lila frantically searching online for the detective's name, her face pale with fear. When confronted, she claimed he reminded her of someone who had once harassed her at work. The explanation felt hollow, her hands still shaking as she closed the browser. What devastating secret could drive someone to construct an entirely new identity? Share your theories in the comments about what Lila might be hiding from her husband and children. Is she a victim running from danger or something more complicated? Hit that like button if you've ever discovered someone wasn't who they claimed to be. On the anniversary of their first date, Nathaniel Harper left his architectural firm at 2:30 p.m., 3 hours earlier than expected. His leather briefcase contained 2 items alongside his laptop: a velvet jewelry box holding diamond earrings and confirmation for a weekend trip to the coastal bed and breakfast where they'd once celebrated their 5th anniversary. 20 years together deserved commemoration beyond the usual dinner reservation. The house stood quiet upon his arrival. Clara was at her writing workshop, Ethan at band practice, and Lila had mentioned plans to volunteer at the library until 5. The solitude offered a perfect opportunity to prepare his surprise, perhaps rose petals leading to the bedroom where champagne would chill beside her gift. Moving through their home, Nathaniel noticed details that normally escaped his attention during evening hours. How afternoon light caught the crystal vase they'd received as a wedding gift, the slight creaking of the third stair that he'd promised to fix months ago. In the kitchen he found Lila's handwritten list for tomorrow's grocery shopping, her elegant script mapping out the week's meals. His steps carried him upstairs, intending to hide the earrings in her jewelry drawer. Instead, a recently disturbed floorboard in their bedroom closet caught his attention. The oak plank slightly elevated at one edge, despite his meticulous installation years before. Nathaniel knelt beside the irregular floorboard, running his fingers along its edge. The wood lifted with surprising ease, revealing a shallow cavity beneath. There, tucked in darkness, lay a metal lockbox, approximately the size of a hardcover novel, its surface free from dust despite its hidden location. The box's weight surprised him as he lifted it, the contents shifting with a muffled rustling of paper. The lock, simple but effective, resisted his initial attempt to open it. Nathaniel carried the box to his workshop, where precision tools lined pegboards in careful arrangements. Selecting a small flathead screwdriver, he worked at the mechanism with increasing determination. Each failed attempt intensified his curiosity, transforming it gradually into unease. Why would Lila hide a locked box beneath their bedroom floor? What contents required such secrecy from the person who shared her life? The lock finally yielded with a definitive click that echoed in the empty house. Nathaniel hesitated, his hand resting on the lid, a boundary between knowledge and ignorance. The rational part of his mind suggested replacing everything, pretending he'd never discovered this secret. Instead, he raised the lid, exposing contents that would irreversibly transform their 20 years of shared history into something unrecognizable. The box contained an organized collection of documents, each protected in clear plastic sleeves. On top lay a driver's license with Lila's face but an unfamiliar name, Marina Delgado, issued in Illinois 23 years earlier. Beneath it, a birth certificate for Marina Elena Delgado, born not in the western state Lila had casually referenced but in a Chicago suburb. Photographs revealed a younger version of his wife alongside strangers, a graduation image showing her between an older couples who bore no resemblance to the deceased parents she'd occasionally mentioned. A newspaper clipping announced her engagement to Daniel Corrigan, a man Nathaniel had never heard mentioned in 20 years of marriage. Most disturbing were the legal documents. Court records indicating Marina Delgado had been questioned regarding suspicious circumstances surrounding Daniel Corrigan's death. Though never formally charged, her name appeared repeatedly in police statements detailing inconsistent alibis and potential motives. A small notebook contained handwritten entries tracking what appeared to be surveillance notes, dates, locations, and observations about someone monitoring her movements. The final pages included research on identity creation, legal name changes, and methods for establishing new credit histories. The collection painted a comprehensive portrait of methodical reinvention, a woman who had systematically erased her past to become Lila Harper. Marina Elena Delgado was born to first-generation immigrants in Chicago's North Side. Her academic transcripts revealed a brilliant student who earned a full scholarship to Northwestern University, graduating with honors in English literature. Employment records showed her subsequent work at a prestigious publishing house. The transformation into Lila Harper occurred abruptly, following Daniel Corrigan's death. Bank records documented the closure of Marina's accounts, followed by Lila's first financial appearances 2 states away. The methodical erasure of one identity and construction of another had been executed with remarkable thoroughness. The woman Nathaniel had loved for 20 years, the mother of his children, had never truly existed. The police reports painted a disturbing picture. Daniel Corrigan, Marina's fiancé, had been found dead in their Chicago apartment, multiple stab wounds indicating a frenzied attack rather than calculated murder. Marina reported discovering his body after returning from an overnight work conference, but hotel records showed discrepancies in her checkout time. Witness statements described their relationship as increasingly volatile, with neighbors reporting loud arguments in the weeks preceding his death. Most damning was a life insurance policy naming Marina as beneficiary, established just months before the incident. Though officially ruled a homicide with insufficient evidence to prosecute, investigators had clearly considered Marina their primary suspect. The documents slipped from Nathaniel's fingers, scattering across the workshop floor as nausea overtook him. His lungs struggled for oxygen, each breath shallow and insufficient. The wedding band on his left hand, the symbol of their commitment, suddenly felt foreign against his skin. Images flashed through his mind. Lila cradling newborn Clara, teaching Ethan to ride a bicycle, laughing beside him on countless anniversary celebrations. Each memory now contaminated by deception. The bathroom barely contained his violent physical reaction. Afterward, he stared at his reflection, a stranger married to a stranger. 20 years of shared intimacy collapsed into a void of questions without answers. One certainty remained. He needed the truth whatever the cost. Dusk settled over the Harper home as Lila's car pulled into the driveway. The kitchen remained dark, their usual dinner preparations conspicuously absent. Instead, documents from the hidden box lay methodically arranged across their dining table. The mahogany surface where they'd shared 20 years of family meals now displaying 2 decades of calculated deception. Nathaniel sat motionless at the head of the table, the jewelry box and weekend reservation forgotten beside Marina Delgado's birth certificate. The grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift from Lila's supposed college friends, ticked with mechanical precision, marking seconds between the life he had known and whatever reality awaited. The sound of Lila's key in the lock echoed through the silent house. Her cheerful, "I'm home," faded as she entered the dining room, grocery bags slipping from her fingers when she registered both Nathaniel's expression and the exposed evidence of her former identity. "Nathaniel, I can explain," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the persistent ticking. "Marina Delgado," Nathaniel stated flatly. "That's your real name." Her shoulders collapsed as 20 years of careful performance dissolved. "Yes," she admitted, sinking into the chair opposite him. "I haven't heard anyone say that name in a very long time." The confession poured forth in halting segments. Born to hardworking immigrants, academic success opening doors to opportunities, meeting Daniel Corrigan during her junior year at Northwestern. He was brilliant, charming. Everyone envied our relationship. She described creating Lila Harper after fleeing Chicago, methodically constructing a new identity far from Illinois. The meticulous attention to detail, selecting a birth date she could remember easily, choosing a hometown in a region she'd never visited, practicing signature variations until Lila's handwriting bore no resemblance to Marina's. "I met you 6 months later," she said, eyes fixed on the wedding band she still wore. "You were everything Daniel wasn't, kind, patient, respectful. I never planned to fall in love with you." Her voice cracked. "I convinced myself that Marina died with Daniel. That Lila, your wife, our children's mother, became my true self. The person I was always meant to be if circumstances had been different." "Daniel's public face charmed everyone," Lila continued, her fingers unconsciously tracing old scars beneath her sleeves. "Behind closed doors he transformed. The first time he struck me, he brought roses the next day, swearing it would never happen again." She described escalating abuse, fractured ribs disguised as a skiing accident, a dislocated shoulder attributed to clumsiness, cigarette burns hidden beneath carefully selected clothing. Hospital records confirmed multiple emergency room visits with suspicious injuries. "I tried leaving 3 times, she explained. "Each attempt made things worse. He threatened my parents, my friends, anyone who might help me escape. The isolation became absolute." The final months revealed Daniel's growing paranoia and control, monitoring her movements, checking her phone constantly, restricting access to finances. "He became convinced I was planning to leave." Her eyes lifted to meet Nathaniel's. He was right. When she finally gathered courage to end the relationship, Daniel's rage exceeded anything previous. "He came at me with a knife from our kitchen block, screaming that if he couldn't have me, no one would." The confrontation escalated into a desperate struggle. "I don't remember grabbing the knife. I only remember the blood and the silence afterward. It was self-defense," she whispered. "But who would believe me?" Nathaniel's composure fractured as his wife's confession continued. His hands, steady through decades of precise architectural drawings, trembled violently against the tabletop. 20 years, he managed, voice raw with emotion. 20 years of marriage based on lies. His mind struggled to reconcile the woman before him with the stranger in the documents. "Our wedding vows, was anything you said true? Our children, did you think about what this deception would mean for them?" Rising abruptly, he paced the room, alternating between rage and despair. "I defended you to Miranda when she noticed inconsistencies. I dismissed my own observations. I built our entire life around someone who doesn't exist. His fist connected with the wall, drywall crumbling around the impact. Every memory we created together is contaminated. Our first date, our wedding, the birth of our children, all shared with a fabrication, not a person. I loved you, he choked. I loved a ghost. Neither heard the front door open as Caroline Harper entered, carrying a housewarming gift for her return to Avon Ridge. Nathaniel's estranged older sister had moved back after 15 years away, hoping to repair familial relationships. She froze in the hallway, witnessing her brother's uncharacteristic violence through the dining room doorway. The documents scattered across the table, Lila's tear-streaked face, and Nathaniel's devastated expression told a story she couldn't fully comprehend. "Nate?" she called hesitantly, stepping into view. "I used my emergency key. What's happening?" Her presence, unexpected and unwelcome, added another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. "Leave, Caroline," Nathaniel ordered without looking at his sister. "This doesn't concern you." Caroline remained rooted, her gaze shifting between the increasingly erratic movements of her brother and the visible fear in Lila's expression. "You're scaring me, Nate." Lila rose slowly, hands extended in a placating gesture. "Nathaniel, please. Let's talk about this rationally." "Rational?" He laughed bitterly, gesturing toward the evidence. "Was it rational to construct an entire false identity? To marry me knowing you were suspected of killing your fiancé?" Each accusation increased the electric tension filling the room. From upstairs came the sound of the front door, Clara and Ethan returning home. The children's voices calling from the entryway shattered Nathaniel's remaining restraint. In their innocent tones, he heard futures destroyed by their mother's deception. "They can never know," he hissed, advancing toward Lila. "You've destroyed enough already." Caroline moved between them, phone in hand. "I'm calling the police." What happened next occurred with horrifying speed. Nathaniel grabbed the knife block from the counter, extracting the chef's blade they'd purchased in Germany. Caroline screamed for the children to stay back as Lila retreated against the wall. "Please," Lila begged. "Not like this. Not in front of our children." Her words only fueled his rage. The first strike caught Lila across the collarbone as she raised her arms defensively. The second penetrated deeper, meeting less resistance. Blood bloomed across her cream-colored blouse, the one she'd worn on their 15th anniversary. Caroline lunged for her brother as the third blow landed, but his strength, fueled by betrayal, proved impossible to overcome. Ethan and Clara appeared in the doorway, their screams blending with the terrible rhythm of blade meeting flesh. The fifth and final strike buried the knife to its hilt. Lila's body crumpled to the floor, her last words a whispered, "I'm sorry," directed not at her husband but at her children. Silence descended in the seconds following Lila's final breath. Nathaniel stood motionless, blood-soaked hands still gripping the knife as reality crashed upon him. Clara collapsed against the doorframe, her anguished scream dissolving into broken sobs. Ethan remained frozen, his 15-year-old mind unable to process the violent transformation of his father from protector to killer. Caroline acted first, pulling the stunned children away from the scene while dialing 911. "My brother, he's killed his wife," she explained with remarkable composure, her teacher's training engaging automatically despite her own shock. Police arrived within minutes, the quiet neighborhood suddenly alive with flashing lights and urgent voices. Officers found Nathaniel seated beside Lila's body, unresisting as they secured his hands behind his back. The documents remained scattered across the dining table. Marina Delgado's life story exposed alongside Lila Harper's lifeless form. "She wasn't who I thought she was," he repeated mechanically as they led him away. None of it was real. News traveled through Avon Ridge with unprecedented speed. Neighbors gathered behind police barricades, their expressions transitioning from curiosity to horror as details emerged. The family that had represented perfection now symbolized devastating deception. "I had dinner with them last weekend," whispered Rebecca Johnson, the high school principal who had praised Clara's writing talent just days earlier. "They seemed so normal, so happy." Local media arrived by morning, transforming Avon Ridge from an anonymous lakeside community into the focal point of a national tragedy. Headlines emphasized the shocking contrast: "Architect murders wife after discovering secret identity," and "Perfect family's facade hides deadly secrets." Community leaders struggled with appropriate responses. The library where Lila volunteered closed for a day of reflection. The architectural firm where Nathaniel had built his career issued a stunned statement expressing sympathy for the children. In living rooms across town, parents held their families closer, suddenly questioning how well they knew their own spouses. Detective Lillian Porter took command of the investigation, her 20 years of experience evident in her methodical approach. The crime scene told a straightforward story. The physical evidence aligned with Caroline's eyewitness account and Nathaniel's immediate confession. "This isn't about determining who committed the act," Porter explained to her team. "It's about understanding why a man with no history of violence murdered his wife of 20 years. The documents proved crucial, revealing Marina Delgado's transformation into Lila Harper with remarkable thoroughness." Porter expanded the investigation across state lines, connecting with Chicago detectives who remembered the unsolved Corrigan case. "She created an entirely new person," Porter noted during case review. "Changed her handwriting, constructed a fictional background, and maintained the deception through decades of marriage. The psychological fortitude required is extraordinary." Nathaniel's interrogation revealed a man shattered by betrayal. His initial rage had subsided into hollow grief. "I built our life on her lies," he repeated. "Everything I believed about us was false." Most disturbing to investigators was the children's statements. Neither had suspected anything unusual about their mother. Clara described her as completely authentic, while Ethan insisted his mother's love had never felt fabricated. Their certainty suggested Lila's performance had been flawless. Clara and Ethan processed trauma through starkly different channels. Clara's writerly instincts transformed grief into creation. Her journal entries evolved from incoherent emotional outpourings to structured examinations of memory versus reality. "I'm documenting everything I can remember about Mom," she explained to her Aunt Miranda, who had immediately flown in from Seattle. "I need to separate what was real from what wasn't." Ethan retreated into music, converting his bedroom into a makeshift studio where he composed haunting melodies that expressed what words couldn't. His compositions moved from chaotic dissonance in the immediate aftermath toward complex harmonies that acknowledged both love and betrayal. Both refused professional counseling initially, though Miranda eventually arranged sessions with her most trusted colleague. "They're rewriting their entire childhood," the psychologist observed. "Examining every memory for authenticity, questioning the foundations of their identities. Their mother's deception has forced them to question their own stories." The anonymous letters originated from Miguel Corrigan, Daniel's younger brother who had never accepted the inconclusive investigation into his brother's death. For 20 years he had searched for Marina Delgado, employing various methods to track her movements. A chance photograph in a regional architectural magazine, featuring Nathaniel Harper's award-winning design with his family posed before it, had finally revealed her location. The calculated letters served dual purposes, alerting Nathaniel to his wife's deception while simultaneously watching her reaction from afar. "I wanted justice," Miguel admitted when identified by investigators. "But not like this. I never intended for her children to lose both parents in a single night. Finding out your spouse has hidden their true identity for 20 years would devastate anyone. What would you have done in Nathaniel's position? Comment below with how you think you'd react to such betrayal. Would you seek understanding, justice, or something else entirely? Hit subscribe to join our ongoing conversation about human psychology. Court records from 20 years prior painted a more nuanced portrait of Marina Delgado than either Nathaniel or the investigators initially understood. Medical documentation confirmed extensive abuse, X-rays showing multiple healed fractures, physician notes questioning explanations for injuries, and a therapist's confidential assessment describing classic patterns of domestic violence. Former colleagues from the publishing house described Daniel Corrigan's controlling behavior, showing up unexpectedly at her workplace, monitoring lunch breaks, restricting her professional relationships. "He isolated her methodically," testified her former supervisor. "We watched her transform from a confident professional into someone constantly checking over her shoulder." Marina's personal journal, recovered from a Chicago storage unit maintained under an alias, chronicled escalating danger. "Daniel found my emergency cash today," one entry read. "He burned it in front of me saying I'd never escape him. I'm running out of options and time." The evidence supported her claim of self-defense, suggesting that Marina Delgado hadn't fled justice but rather the memory of necessary violence. Nathaniel Harper's trial captured national attention. Legal experts debated applicable charges. Was this premeditated murder or a crime of passion? Could extreme emotional distress constitute mitigating circumstances? His testimony reflected a man still processing incomprehensible betrayal. "I felt like I was drowning," he explained, hands trembling on the witness stand. 20 years of marriage suddenly revealed as fiction. Our children's mother, a fugitive suspect in another man's death. When questioned about the violent outburst, Nathaniel's recollections remained fragmented. I remember feeling that everything we'd built together was contaminated. I couldn't separate the woman I loved from the stranger in those documents. Prosecutors presented the case as tragic but straightforward. A husband who chose murder over understanding when confronted with his wife's complex past. The defense argued temporary insanity, claiming the sudden revelation had triggered a psychological break that rendered Nathaniel incapable of rational thought or controlling his actions. During the third week of trial, Ricardo Delgado, Marina's cousin who had maintained minimal contact throughout her years as Lila, provided crucial context about their family history. Marina's parents fled political violence in Guatemala, Ricardo testified. They instilled in us a survival instinct, to recognize danger early and escape at any cost. When Daniel became violent, she applied these lessons. Ricardo revealed that Marina had contacted him once after establishing her new identity, explaining her decision. She told me, "I found safety and love for the first time. I can't risk losing it by revealing my past." He described maintaining distance while sending birthday cards to Lila's children from distant relatives, monitoring their welfare from afar. Most significantly, he confirmed that Marina had acted in self-defense against Daniel. He had driven her to the hospital afterward, witnessing her shock and trauma firsthand. She wasn't a calculating murderer, Ricardo insisted. She was a survivor who created a new life because her old one was stolen through violence. Avon Ridge struggled to reconcile contradictory narratives. The same community that had elevated the Harpers as ideal now grappled with complex realities, that domestic abuse victims often hide in plain sight, that desperation drives people to extreme measures, which long-buried secrets eventually surface. Local churches held forums discussing forgiveness and judgment. The high school implemented curriculum addressing domestic violence. Book clubs selected memoirs about hidden identities and reinvention. Miranda Harper established a scholarship in Clara and Ethan's names, supporting students affected by domestic violence. "We cannot undo this tragedy," she explained at the announcement ceremony, "but we can create meaning from it." Former friends divided into factions, some understanding Lila's desperate choices, others feeling personally betrayed by decades of deception. The architectural firm commissioned a community center dedicated to family counseling services, attempting to transform professional association with tragedy into positive legacy. The Harper home remained empty, its once welcoming facade now serving as a reminder of appearances versus reality. As legal proceedings continued, ethical questions resonated beyond courtroom walls. Did Lila's right to escape abuse justify constructing an entirely false identity? Could Nathaniel's violent response ever be understood if not condoned? Most challenging, did 20 years of genuine love and motherhood outweigh the fundamental deception at the relationship's core? The Harper tragedy forces us to confront impossible questions. What would you have done in Nathaniel's position? Seek understanding, demand answers, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How far would you go to protect your family from devastating truths? Subscribe for more explorations of complex human psychology. 5 years after the tragedy, Clara and Ethan Harper forged distinctly different paths forward. Clara, now a published author, channeled her experience into award-winning fiction exploring hidden identities and moral complexity. Her debut novel, The Woman Before, examined how trauma reshapes reality, earning comparisons to psychological classics while helping readers understand her mother's impossible choices. Ethan pursued music therapy at Berklee College, his compositions serving both as personal healing and professional calling. Working with trauma survivors, he transformed his pain into purpose. "I understand living with fractured truth," he explained in a rare interview. Music creates space for contradictions to exist simultaneously. Though they maintained separate residences, the siblings remained deeply connected, their shared experience creating a bond that transcended conventional family structures. Together, they established a foundation supporting children affected by domestic violence and parental incarceration. Avon Ridge transformed in the tragedy's wake. The community that once prided itself on neighborly connection developed increased awareness of privacy's importance. Local schools implemented comprehensive programs addressing relationship violence, while the library Lila once supported now housed an extensive domestic abuse resource center. The Harper property, purchased by the county after remaining vacant for 3 years, became a community garden where healing and growth emerged from a site of violence. Each spring, volunteers planted flowers representing renewal. Most significantly, the town's perception of perfect families evolved. "We learned to see beyond polished exteriors," noted Mayor Wilson at the garden's dedication. "Real human connection requires acknowledging complexity rather than pursuing perfection." Annual community forums examining the intersection of privacy, safety, and truth became Avon Ridge's most attended civic events, drawing participants from surrounding counties seeking to prevent similar tragedies. Miranda Harper's professional expertise in psychology positioned her uniquely to guide her niece and nephew through trauma while processing her own grief. Her journal, later published with her family's permission, offered profound insights. "Secrets between partners create distance that widens imperceptibly until separation becomes absolute," she wrote. "My sister-in-law constructed walls of silence believing they protected her family, never recognizing how they simultaneously imprisoned her." In her work with trauma survivors, Miranda developed what she termed compassionate truth, an approach acknowledging that while honesty forms the foundation of intimacy, timing and context remain equally crucial. Understanding why someone conceals truth matters as much as the concealment itself. The Harper tragedy continues resonating beyond geographic boundaries, illuminating how past wounds shape present choices when left unaddressed. Lila's desperate reinvention demonstrates how violence forces impossible decisions, while Nathaniel's devastating response reveals how betrayal can destroy rational thought in even the most measured individuals. Their story compels couples to examine communication patterns and create space for difficult disclosures before secrets calcify into permanent barriers. Mental health professionals reference this case when discussing how transparency builds sustainable relationships while emphasizing that violence never constitutes justified response to deception. Perhaps most powerfully, their children's resilience demonstrates that even after fundamental truths collapse, meaning and purpose remain possible, though the journey requires courage, support, and unflinching honesty with oneself. This tragedy holds essential lessons for all relationships. Subscribe now to explore more stories where human psychology meets ethical complexity. Share this video with someone who values authentic connection, and join our community discussion about whether complete honesty is always possible or advisable in intimate relationships. Your perspective matters in this ongoing conversation.